Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. I am excited to welcome to the show Adam Lynch today. Brother, thank you for being here. How are you, man?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me on. I've been binging your podcast for the last few days
Oh,
now as well. So
thank
I'm
you,
like,
man.
I need to get familiar with the lore and stuff. So now, I always do that, do a bit of a catch up before, you know what I mean?
hmm
So yeah, it's one of those weird things. Like I already feel like we know each other.
Yeah,
You
man,
know?
that's the cool thing about podcasting. Because you'll listen to someone and you're basically like in the room with them, I feel. That's how I feel when I
Yeah,
go into a podcast and it's in my ears and I'm hearing two guys talking or whoever's talking and you're with them. And that's what I think is quite special about podcasting. That's what got me into podcasting. I thought I'd like to be that for someone else where they can just tune in, that whether they're at work or whatever, they can put their headphones on and escape their world to go into this podcast
exactly.
world. And that's what I love about podcasting.
No, it's super nice having like all these friends now all over the world. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And
So
then like when it actually comes to fruition as well, it's just lovely. Yeah,
yeah.
I think
Oh
it's
man, it's a
great.
great community. So did you say you're from Dublin?
Yeah, so I'm from Dublin, Ireland, and I don't know. Sometimes like my customer service voice is still on because depending on where I am, I'm just trying to avoid. I'm just trying to go in and get me loaf of bread or whatever. I'm trying to avoid the whole I've got six generations of you know. So or if I'm at work or something like that, I sometimes the accent just naturally like turns off.
Yeah,
So if I
yeah.
get passionate about something, it'll come back out. So you might hear it more later. But
It's a
yeah,
cool accent, man.
so I've been living in Houston now for 5 years, and then I was in Canada for 2 years before that. So I've been in North America to go to the 10 years now,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you is can you feel the accent changing? Like are you do
It's
you
not something I do on purpose, but if I'm on the phone to like one of the lads or something, and
yeah.
then I go back inside and I'm talking to my missus, it's very thick. Like, and then if vice versa, if I'm talking to my sisters or something, and I'll say something. And then I'll get an awful slagging, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, who do you think you are? Like, you know? So yeah, it literally just depends. But
Ah, it's quality, man. So what took you to North America? What was the
yeah, nothing like crazy, but Ireland has a really cool like 2 year work and holiday visa thing for Canada. So it's just really easy for young like professionals or who I don't even think you need a degree or anything like that, but you can go and just work and enjoy the country for a couple of years. And then while I was there, I met my now wife online in a Stephen King book club of all things.
wow?
Yeah, yeah. But she was living in Houston. And when I was in Canada, it was handy to just like pop down for a weekend or vice versa. But then we had to decide, like, okay, well, what are we going to do here? So I moved back home for a year and started the process to come back here. And it was actually in that year that I moved back home, I reconnected with a load of people that I just hadn't seen for the longest time. And that's when we kind of started going like, wait, you're into spooky stuff? I'm into spooky stuff. And then that's literally when it started. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I've got to say as well, a big talking point in the paranormal world recently has been the Annabelle doll. Now I know the listeners won't be able to see this. If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see this, but I
Right,
think I've worked out if it has gone missing,
right.
where she is. I've
Let's
seen
hit
her.
the
I found
autofocus.
we found her. It was
Yeah,
you all along, brother.
it's me. I'm one of my biggest like nerd out things in the paranormal world is like making haunted things. It's never worked. I'm like so 50-50 on it, and I kind of do it half jokingly, but I've got like two nieces and a nephew who come over here, and they know what I'm like, so they know not to believe the stories half the time that I tell them. But every time they stay over, this Annabelle doll gets like turned around, or they'll put it under the in the shelf or something. But then another thing I have is, hold on, let me see if I can not make a load of noise. This like little bell. Have you seen the movie Oddity?
Ah, I don't think so.
So
I
I'm
may
I'm
have
not
done.
gonna
I'm
I'm
terrible
not
about
gonna hit the
remembering
bell, but
names.
basically it was an Irish movie, and I didn't
Hmm.
know it was an Irish movie until I actually went to see it. So it kind of centers around one of these. And again, we saw it with my niece, and I was like, do you know what? $6 off of eBay or Amazon or something like that. Give
Yeah.
me one of those. It's a little like reception bell. And then at Christmas time, all the cousins were around, all the younger cousins, and like, of course, they all just think I'm some mad Irishman, like, you know what I mean? So anyway, I just made up this whole story about this haunted bell. I was like, one of my listeners reached out to me and they sent it to me. And
So awesome.
I had all these like 12 and 13-year-old, they were blessing themselves coming into the room. I was like, this is ridiculous. Eventually, my wife was like, go out there and tell them that you're like winding them up. You know what
I love
I
that.
mean? Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man.
But yeah, so I like just basically I'll make up a little story and
Yeah,
just like
that's
spook them
cool though.
out. Like
Yeah,
so
that's
that's
what it's
whenever
all
I can.
about,
Like,
man.
yeah, yeah.
Keep them scared,
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. And then if something weird does ever happen, I'm like, oh shit, all right, cool. Yeah.
But the Annabelle, I know that's probably not the actual Annabelle. It might be. I don't know. But
Well,
because they
it
did
is
say she was
technically.
missing. I think they've caught her now. I think she's back, but she has been on tour.
Yeah,
She's been doing the rounds.
I was like this close to going to San Antonio because it's only 3 or 4 hours, and I was literally up there like I don't know 3 weeks ago with Bear County Bigfoot, who you've had on your show
Yes,
before.
awesome dude. Yeah.
Yes, so super lovely rod. Um, but I was like literally the time with work and stuff like that. I couldn't get it to work out, and I was so annoyed. I literally went to work that day going like I should have just called out. But I know a handful of people that were there anyway and at the event, and it was supposed to be really good. And then all of a sudden, yeah, I started hearing these rumors, and people were sending me these like funny memes of like animated Annabelle dolls like just running wild. So I was
Yeah,
like,
I saw a few of them. Yeah, there's one where it done like a flip. I don't know what it
yeah,
was. I
yeah,
don't know how they done it. I guess, but it's
probably,
man.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, like, because the people who are running the war and like they came out and they were like, "No, Annabelle, she's here. She like we have her. Don't worry," kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
I
don't
bet it
know.
went to New Orleans, and that is didn't I don't know the name of the location, but a known
The
haunted
big
location.
plantation, yeah,
Yeah, it's burnt down, right? Or there was a
yeah,
fire, and then people were seeing like entities apparently walking through the fire. I've not seen any of the videos, but apparently there are videos of entities in the fire. I don't know how true that is.
yeah. It was one of those like I will definitely catch up on all of that stuff about that plantation eventually. I was just like, here, like, absolutely go for it, love. Like you do you, Annabelle, whatever. But that is interesting that you say that though, because I had not to get sidetracked again, but I was working with a guy last year, the most American man I've ever worked with in my life. I actually like at first me and him didn't get along, and by the end of our year or so working together, like we were buds, like texting each other and stuff. Um, but yeah, this guy was ex-military. I can't remember if he was in the Marines or not, but like very serious, cursed all the time, chewed tobacco while smoking.
Oh yes.
And I like wouldn't advise that to anybody,
No,
but like
no.
this the kind of guy he was, like drinking beers on his lunch and stuff like that.
It sounds like a hero.
Um, I mean, he was the most fun person, like honestly. Uh, but yeah, just didn't really give a damn about anything, kind of thing. And finally, we were chatting one day at work, and I was like, "Got any ghost stories, man?" Which is just kind of my thing now to break the tension. And I really and truly expected him to just be like, "No," and just keep going. Like he didn't really talk at all at that time. But it turned out he was actually from Alabama, and one of these big plantation homes was near him or whatever. And that was their spot, like where they would go as kids, like if they were like parking the cars or whatever, because the rumor was that you would see like shadow people like fleeing from the building and like running across the fields and stuff like that. So obviously these places like the amount of history and obviously it's super sensitive area and whatever. So I'm not here like advocating for people to go ghost hunting and stuff, but like I wouldn't be surprised if there was crazy stuff coming out of these videos, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
based off like people that I've actually spoken to who have been to these places. I'm like, that's
hmm hmm
insane,
Yeah,
man.
man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, again, at the same time, I'm also not upset. You know what I mean, that it burnt down. I'm just like, all right, well, you know.
It is wild, and apparently in the same town or same place, there was also like 10 prisoners escaped from a
That
facility or
was in
something.
New Orleans. Yeah, that was actually in New Orleans, I think.
Yeah,
And they were saying like that the state of the the building itself that they were in, because I mean, like, have you been to New Orleans or?
I haven't, not yet. I'd like to one day.
I'm trying to remember. I think like I've only been there briefly. Um, but like it's definitely like an older town that's been just assaulted by weather for hundreds of years, you know what I mean? So I'm not surprised when they were one of the podcasts that I listen to on the regular were kind of covering it a little bit, and they were just saying like, yeah, no, the prison itself should have been in better condition. You know,
Really?
so these guys getting out wasn't like you know, if it was Annabelle that helped them, sure, again,
Yeah.
you get yours, Annabelle. But yeah, it's
Annabelle's
just
like
crazy.
Robin Hood, like that in the.
Yeah, yeah. I think like a lot of those guys are still on the run as well.
Yeah, that's what I
Far as I
heard.
can tell, yeah.
They've not caught them all yet, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I don't know where Annabelle is now. The 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 Annabelle. I don't know what part of the US she's in, but
Yeah,
I
I think she's supposed to be back at home now.
she's
I
back.
think.
She's
I might
back
be wrong.
safe. She's back.
Yeah.
She's like, what a trip, man. What?
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of people that have haunted dolls, and it's a big thing in the paranormal community.
Yeah.
I personally, not for me. I wouldn't have one. I've got my daughters have got loads of dolls in the house, and I
Right, right.
think they're freaky enough. When you walk into their room and they're all looking at you and stuff.
Yeah, man.
But so to have a haunted one, not for me. But what are your thoughts on like haunted objects and things like that?
My kind of viewpoint, like, it changes every week. Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like, I'll cover
Yeah,
a
I'm the same.
story. Yeah, I'll be like doing something and I'll cover a story and I'll be like, I don't believe this. Like, I don't believe a single word of this. And then like one thing will happen and I'm like, all right, I'm in. You know what I mean? I think there's definitely like the cynic in me is like a lot of these ones that are on eBay or whatever. I don't I don't really go for it. Like I said, like this one I got just as a cute little decoration. And it's turned out now like it scares the girls and stuff. So I'm like, all right, well, that's fun. So at this point now, is that a haunted object? Because that's what like they're already terrified of it. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah, man.
know, like if
Yeah,
we want to get really weird about it,
yeah.
it
That's a
is
good
already.
point.
Yeah. And the little bell that I have, like again, I bought it as a joke, but I do plan on taking that to investigations when I eventually get back doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can buy one from I can't think of the name of the company now. There's like kind of one. Um, I think they're from St. Augustine, and it might be called like the St. Augustine Ghost Company or something like that. But they sell all like spirit boxes and stuff. And you can get like this bell that's hooked up to like all this stuff, and it'll just ding kind of whenever something is in like the EMF range. But I'm like, well, this one's just $6 from Amazon, from Amazon. So if that ever does go off on its own, I'm believing it 1000%. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
man.
So
Yeah, for sure, man.
yeah, so that's how I like. I'm kind of weird with it, like um, like I said, I believe in everything and nothing. So
Yeah. It's
just
good. It's good to be
yeah.
skeptical. Like, I have to remind myself that a lot because
Mhm.
you can get carried away and everything becomes paranormal. And it's not always paranormal. Sometimes there is a logical explanation, but we can.
Yeah,
I've been guilty of it in the past, jumping straight to the paranormal. And my wife's like, yeah, but it could be this as well. Don't. I'm like, it could be, but I think that was a ghost. But
yeah, yeah,
so you have to remain like skeptical as well. So,
yeah. And I do like I am that person that like I'm the most skeptical person until something happens anywhere around me, and then I absolutely lose my mind.
yeah. So,
You know?
see, you've got an awesome show, Houston Strange. I've been listening to it, man, and it's
Thanks.
awesome. It's pretty fresh. It's quite new, I believe.
Yeah.
How many episodes are you on now?
So I think there was 6 episodes in like my kind of season one.
Hmm.
And then I managed to get one update done. And I'm currently working on another update episode, which has actually been taking me like so much longer. I mean, it probably like so it's a surprise for the person that I did it with. So I can't really go into it too much without spoiling it.
Yeah.
Um, but I've been working with a bunch of people like in the county. and stuff like that. People who work in like antique shops and basically just trying to find out a lot more about a certain thing. And dude, I've sunk so many hours into it where I'm just going like, this is not like I'm not a researcher by trade. I'm an electrician, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm sure other people out there could be doing such a much better, much faster job, but I'm so into this now. I'm like, no, this is it. But yeah, man. So season two, I'm hoping will come out next month, maybe 6 weeks time. I just signed on with a new network called Southern Gothic Media. Um, I don't know if have you heard of Fear Daily or Southern Gothic or whatever.
I've heard of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so Brandon Scheck he's like running his own network now, and I just signed on with them, which
Awesome,
is really
man.
cool. Yeah, like Brandon's a friend that I met through the podcast kind of scene. So that's cool, but like I'm really excited to start putting stuff out now under that kind of umbrella. And
Yeah,
yeah, man, it's been like Houston Strange, honestly, because we were doing like another show called Weekly Creep for like 4 years. On and off, like you know what I mean. We were consistent for about a year, and then I started to actually work because when I first came over here, I wasn't allowed to work,
hmm,
and like COVID and all that kind of stuff. So we stuck to it. That's kind of where our roots were, me and my wife, like, because we were just doing it. We built up a lovely little community, made so many like really nice friends, and we're still doing it. We've got 2 episodes like ready to come out on there. But yeah, so then a bunch of stuff happened. Personally, like some family stuff happened last year, and I ended up flying back to Dublin like I think 3 times in the span of 3 months, and uh, we everything was kind of all up in the air at that point. We were like, oh well, I don't know. Are we going to stay in Houston? Are we going to go back over there? This kind of thing. So I was like, "Do you know what? I haven't given Houston enough of a chance because like every time I go back home, it's totally different, man. Like you walk into a random little shop, and again, like she's always giving me shit for it, but you walk in, you just end up chatting with a stranger, and you could be there for ages. And like I used to slag my granny about it, but like I was raised by all these women who are all the exact same, and now I am that person. Like, who's your cousin? What did they do? And so I was like, you know what? I haven't tried that though either in Houston, where people can be a little more standoffish and just like closed off. Like I think there's 10 times or 8 times the amount of people here in Houston alone than there are in Ireland. Like, you know what I mean? So people are busy, they're doing their thing.
hmm.
So I was like, you know what, when we go back home, I want to try and get more involved with actual Houstonians. And so Houston Strange was kind of that. And it was also an excuse for me to like just kind of play around, do more like more involved like editing process and stuff like that. And like writing the little bits of music and stuff myself, like
Yeah.
I have like the little keyboard thing that I dick around with. So yeah, it was kind of just an excuse for me to be really selfish and egotistical. Just sit here. But no,
It's
it
awesome, man.
was it was just like to practice all of these different things that I'd started basically.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's been just so nice like that, the people now that I've met from it. Um and yeah, hopefully season two is going to be lots of fun. And then I'm still just constantly trying to get other people involved, to get because it is quite an involved process as well. Like
Hmm.
that's the thing. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, man,
Awesome,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Awesome. So I've talked to a few people from Texas, Houston. I mean, the history there is wild as well. Like, there's so much cool history. I know
yeah.
most places have got cool history when you really look into it. Like everywhere there's history, but Texas history is wild and fascinating and very spooky as well, as you know.
Yeah. And like this is the thing. So a lot of people from here are not from here. You know what I mean? Like I always find myself, like if you're at work or something like that, you start chatting with somebody who you haven't met before. Like one of the first questions is like, "Oh, are you Texan or are you like, you know what I mean?" And like it seems like there's a lot. I'm meeting a lot more actual native Texans now, but for a long time, I was like, no, no, no. Like I flew in from Louisiana is like a huge one, and then California, a lot of people are from there. And as probably a lot of Texans will tell you, like, Texas was better before they got it. Well, it wasn't. It was the same. It always was. It always will be.
Yeah.
Um, but no, yeah. So that like meeting actual Texans, and I'll be chatting with them, and I'll come across some old article in the newspaper or something, and the next day I'll be in work and I'll be just chatting it up with whoever, and I'll be like, "Did you know about such and such?" And they're like, "I never even knew that place existed." Like, and I was like, "Yeah, man, and it's right here," and like, so I'm like, it's getting to the tour guide stage almost. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, so like the urban legends and trying to what I have found is like some of them are just urban legends, and I'm
Hmm.
fine with that. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like before, I was like, no, 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 no. I need to find like the whole story. But I mean, like, so the Black Hope episode of, or I think there was 3 episodes of Houston Strange started out as like pure urban legend, and I was able to find like so Unsolved Mysteries, great TV show. I love watching it. If you are watching on YouTube, I'm sorry that I keep looking down at the screen while I'm trying to have a chat with Colin
That's
when the
cool, man.
camera's up here, or with Tommy, right? And so yeah, I was watching Unsolved Mysteries, and they came out with this story about Black Hope Cemetery, and it's this neighborhood in Texas, or just outside Houston, and it was built over all these graves, blah blah blah. And they came out with this really lovely, well, like horrendous story, but like very well-rounded, like tightly knit story. And I was like, okay, cool. And then it turned out like they were their own source. Basically. Now, again, I could be wrong. Like, I'm never saying like I have all the answers or anything. But for when I was looking into it, that's what I found. Like, I kept kind of circling back around to the same sources every time, and
Hmm.
it would always be Unsolved Mysteries. And then I think Oprah did a special on it as well, and she was just basically recanting the Unsolved Mysteries thing, which is fair enough. Like, TV was the only source of media basically, like at the time. Um, so yeah, once I started looking into it, I was like, okay, well, I actually don't think this is true, but the basic story of it was that there was a bunch of emancipated people who had been given their freedom by the people who had previously owned them, and in doing so, the people who owned the land were told, right, well, you need to give, like, say, this amount of area to these people and let them live their lives. And that did happen. Like that literally happened in a town just like I think it's like not even 5 miles down the road. Like you actually have to drive through it. Barrett Station is the actual town. Crosby is where the story takes place. So um in the Crosby Black Hope version, the town prospers for a while and then burns down like accidentally or on purpose. Nobody really knows. It just, a massive fire, wooden buildings, the whole town gets wiped. And they have a cemetery that obviously is unaffected because it's away from the city anyway, or from the town. And so for years, people move on, and it just said like it doesn't mention Barrett Station. It just says that they move on to another emancipated people township. But they keep using this cemetery, and basically, I was trying to find evidence of this fire. I don't personally, I couldn't find anything. If it does exist, hats off. I'd love to see it. Like if anybody does prove me wrong, I'd love to do a little update on it. Um, but yeah, so I think they kind of got the story of Barrett Station, which was this one dude. I think Barrett was his first name. Basically, he was freed, got this plot of land, set up what was just at one point just one little townhome, one little home, and then eventually the town built up around that. But that man literally went off on his own, found his cousins, his brothers, sisters, everything, and like physically brought them back to his land, and that's where that town started. And now, still today, like 150 years later, that town is still a prospering. Now it's just a suburb, like, but
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, well, that happened like 5 miles down the road. Like, literally, I think I have to drive through Barrett Station to get to Crosby, or you drive past it at least. And
Man.
so yeah, so I think the urban legend grew out of like two half tales.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, the people in the Crosby neighborhood who are experiencing this stuff, as recent as 2017, there were human remains being found in backyards and stuff like that. And that's where the first story came from in the 90s, or I think even earlier. I think it might have been the 80s. But yeah, somebody went to dig for a pool in their backyard, and they uncovered human remains. And so that's where the
Man.
Black Hope thing, yeah. So I was like, man, so there's you find the truth, and then
Hmm.
a lot of the times you find the real story and you're kind of going, okay, well, maybe it's not as full of splendor as like the folktale, but it's more interesting, the
Yeah.
story. Um, and then like there's so many side characters. When I go down these little rabbit holes, one person that I found the other day owned a plot of land that I was looking into, and I'm going through the newspaper archives, and I'm like, okay, well, I have his name. It's written down here somewhere. Uh, I got this because the county clerk helped me out. She was like, "These are the people. These are the land deeds." She's like teaching me how to read like legal documents from the 1800s, going through their like handwritten. Oh man, talk about a nightmare. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. My eyes are going square. Um, but yeah, so I found this one person who was a part owner of this land. It was a family who owned it at one point, not Crosby. This is in a different area. So I started looking into the individual family members. Uh, One person ended up being a personal advisor for Woodrow Wilson during World War One, and like from this small town in Texas, but they had a lot of money. They went to good schools. They were mingling. He moved to New York. Personal advisor with Woodrow Wilson. He was the person, one of the people that was sent to Europe in like 1916 while the Ireland Easter Rising and stuff would have been taking place around the same time. But he was actually over there trying to do peace talks with the European countries to be like, how are we going to do this without America getting involved? And then during World War II, he wasn't the personal advisor, but he was still a close relationship with who was it? FDR, I think, was the World War II president. And I was kind of going like, wow, like this is like I've been in this house that he owned, and
Wow.
I'm not saying that he lived there, but like all of these little things. And then his nephew, who also owned it at one point, like talk about Final Destination. The old newspapers were really into like their gory details. And I won't this is your show. I'm not going to gross
No, that's
people out,
cool.
but
That's cool, man. Do it.
basically his obituary was this guy because they also own ranches all over. And like that's the other thing about Texas, man. Like seeing a ranch, you're driving past and you're like, could be 10 minutes. It feels like driving down the highway. It's the same ranch, you know what I mean? But these guys were like OG cowboys and politicians, I suppose. But this guy was out in his barn sharpening his one of his shears, and whatever happened, there was like a chip in his sharpening stone or his wheel, and he literally like the shears jumped, and he stabbed himself in the neck, and they managed to get him back to his kitchen where he bled out. But I was just like, oh my God. Like as I was reading
Yeah.
this, I was like, holy. And like that's just two stories of one generation, or well, two generations of family of this one particular land. And
Wow.
so I get like so wrapped up and I'm just like,
That's
this is
wild, man.
insane. And then the next day I go to work or I'm chatting with the missus and I'm like, you're never gonna get and they're just looking at me like, all right, man. Like
Yeah, you tell the guys at work, and they're like, "Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's amazing, right?"
Yeah, yeah. Uh
No, it is though. It is. I find like the history of especially like North America as well, how it was all formed because it wasn't really that long ago. Like I know there was
exactly.
natives there before, obviously,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like America as we know it today is quite new, obviously.
Yeah.
And I find it so interesting how we can literally see how it was like. I mean, I know the history books don't always tell us the truth. We're gonna go down a conspiracy route, but and they show us that even 100 years they could manipulate what we know now. Like the
Yeah.
history is very hard
Yeah.
to know what was true and not, obviously. But
Yeah.
I find it so interesting, man, how it was made, and
No, it is definitely like fascinating, especially like when we go home, my granny goes to this it's just a hotel now, but like it's not even that big like compared to like American standards, but it's just an old hotel. They do like nice lunches and stuff. Like swimming pool and a gym and all. Uh but it's where she meets the ladies, I think every Tuesday or something. And so whenever we go back home, like my missus loves going up there. I mean, I love going there as well. Like it's lovely. But like that hotel was built, I think, in 70 and 75. You know what I mean? And it's
yeah,
just to me, I'm walking in and like I said, I was an electrician before, so when I walk into somewhere, I'm like, oh, they could have done better with like, this needs to be repainted or something. So I'm like, it's
yeah,
kind of getting a bit shabby. But yeah, then like when you're that's kind of my that's like my grounding for like I mean, the Killiney Castle was there already, you know what I mean? So like it can't be but yeah, man, yeah, yeah. That's how my brain works though. I'm like thinking in the locale of like Dublin, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, I love it, man. So what got you into like the strange, the paranormal? Is it a fascination you've always had?
Yeah, I think so, man. Like when I was a kid, uh I always say this, like if I met myself as a child, I don't think I'd like me. I was a little like scaredy cat. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I still am, like, but basically my uncle, uh I have the book here. I don't want to pull it out. There's a bunch of stuff on top. My uncle got the Reader's Digest Mysteries and Unexplained book, which the few times I have pulled it out, like other people, even over here, have had like the American version of the same book and all. And I was like, oh, cool. So this has like warped all of our minds, you know? But yeah, I think I was like 5 or 6, and basically he was a teenager, so he wasn't like, you know what I mean. He was out drinking, doing whatever. So I think I like stole it from his room or something. But when I brought it home, my mom, who was also still to this day terrified of all this stuff, I think I was like reading it without her knowing, and I read the story of the Banshee, and I ended up sleeping in their room for what felt like weeks. You know what I mean? But that was it. I think like I can pinpoint it down to that like one book,
Mhm.
and there's still like other stories I'll hear will come up, and I'm like, I know where that's from, and it's still from that book. Like people are still talking about it. And between that and then like Most Haunted, me and my dad actually, it was a lovely like bonding memory from the two of us. Because like, again, being a teenager, like then you don't have much to talk about or whatever with your dad. But like I think every Tuesday night or something,
Yes.
Most Haunted and the Fifth Field and all was on. So
Yeah.
like, we'd sit and watch that together, or like the live ones and stuff.
Yeah,
And
man.
that's it, just kind of spiraled from there, man. And
Yeah.
then I think the first like no, I remember doing like ghost tours when I was in like New York in like 2012 or something like that. That's probably like the first like involved thing that I did. And I was like, this is great. This is lovely. And then after that, then yeah, when I was in Canada, like I did nothing for like the longest time actually like involved in this. I would read like the Warrens books and stuff like that. Um, because again, like that for people who aren't in the paranormal nerddom, that's the handiest kind of gateway, I think, as well. So yeah, but then I was in Canada. It was not long before I left, and my old job, I would do really boring stuff. But you know that Dire Straits song, like we have to install microwave ovens?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
me, man. No, so like basically these shops would open up, and I worked for the company, so we would go in and fit out the entire shops with like ovens, microwaves, fridges, whatever. But it was a great for me because I could like drive to these new towns in Ontario that I'd never been before, and Quebec. And yeah, so I was in Ottawa for like a couple of weeks, and then the job ran longer, just a day longer. And I had heard of the High Ottawa Jail, and I was like, the boss was booking more hotels, and he was like, "Oh, the hotel that we're in is full up for tonight. Like we're gonna have to go somewhere else." And I was like, "Book me in the jail." And the guy that I was with wasn't having it. Like obviously, he went off, had like a lovely hotel stay that night, and he dropped me off here. And I was like, in hindsight, I would love to go back, but like I was tired. I think we were doing like 16, 17 hour work days at that time, and he drops me off and it's dark, and I go in and it's a hostel, and it's like hostely vibes, like you know what I mean, like there's like Ouija boards and stuff, but like people are just sitting
Oh
in the
man.
foyer. Yeah, they were just chatting it up though, like just actual travelers who I hadn't been around for years, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I need to go to bed. Like I have to get up at 7 or something to drive all the way back to Toronto or do whatever. And so anyway, they had booked me my own room. I wasn't sharing a room. So I go down and it's literally in solitary confinement uh in this old jail. And they haven't,
Oh man.
yeah, like the building obviously is like up to like safety codes and stuff, but they still have like the shackles were still on the floor. You know what I mean? Of this room. And I think the podcast I was listening to at the time, because it was the first podcast actually ever, and I was only talking to someone else about this, was And That's Why We Drink. I don't know if you know Em and Christine, lovely guys, but I had heard of it, but I didn't listen to it before I went. I was like, no, I'm going in with no expectations, this kind of thing. And yeah, so in later then, like listening to the podcast, like those shackles is where people obviously were chained to the floor and stuff like that. But at the time, I just had a wooden door, and then that was it. Like when you went outside, you could see like, oh right, well, here's like the outside world, like past this little walkway or whatever. But back in the day, obviously they had no windows, no doors, or whatever. And anyway, so yeah, I was literally just clearing out my iCloud last night, like I was telling you earlier, and like there's a video of me in this like little cell
On your own.
on my own. Did
Oh.
not get much sleep. I had my iPad, and I was watching, I think, like The Office or something in between, like, just to keep it lighthearted. But this was the thing, right? So it was built like these old jails are built like acoustically, right? So the idea was you would have one warden down the end, and it's all concrete, and like I don't think there was like there's not many corners in the rooms, so it just helps the basically all the audio gets focused down to like you can hear when people are acting like the maggot. So I was in the room and I remember being on the phone to my missus at the time, and I was just saying like, oh, like trying to keep it down because especially like and then like the quieter you get, the louder things seem to be like, and so if when your voice goes kind of deeper, the echo seems stronger. So I'd be like, look, I have to there's people next door and this kind of thing. Like, well, I think they're gonna like, it says like you have to be quiet after 11 o'clock or whatever. And then actually we were on FaceTime, that's what it was. And she was like, go like walk through the building, like. So I explored the whole thing and like that, I was walking it like, oh, this is a bedroom. There's people in there, sorry, leave you alone. And then I get to one corridor and there's no lights on. And the cells, I don't think were set up. Like they were still the way they were. And she's on FaceTime to me. She's going, walk down the hallway. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna lie, I was breaking it. Uh, but it was that first time I think that I was able to get that like tangible, like there is more to this than just me walking down a
Hmm.
dark hallway. Like, you know what I mean? You literally
Yeah.
could feel like people were like watching it every step of the way.
Oh man.
Turns out, I think I might be wrong, but it turned out like that was where they used to keep prisoners on death row.
Whoa, some
Uh,
dark energy there.
yeah, yeah. And I think like just the fact that you were going from like the whole place is obviously a weird vibe, but seems friendly because there's people coming and going, and you're not really like paying attention. Then like you literally walk through this one door. The only light was the exit light down the other end, so it was like this red glow. Anyway, I managed like the next morning. I think I was probably held off going to the down to the loo for hours, but the next morning it was time for me to get up anyway. Sorry, that's what it was. So when lights out happened, which I didn't realize was actually lights out, I was sitting there and I had like the iPad playing on low or in my headphones or something, and the light that was spilling in from the hallway just cut,
Oh
and
man.
everybody, because there was like a couple next door to me, and they'd been like giggling and laughing or doing whatever, and there was other people, and you could hear everybody like the bustle of the place. As soon as lights out happened, like you could hear a pin drop.
Oh man.
And like everything just changed. I was like, full of bravado. I was like, oh, this is gonna be grand, like I'll just sit here, go have a kip, go to
Yeah.
work the next morning. No, man. Everything changed.
So you got a
And
taste of actual prison right there. Like with
yeah,
the lights.
essentially, yeah, it was a little bit warmer than it would have been back in the day, but
Yeah, yeah.
uh, yeah, and so then the next morning when I was finally brave enough to leave the room, like it was still quiet time, like so you had to walk down and the sun wasn't even up, so it was like this weird kind of gray light. Man, it didn't get any easier. So anyway, yeah, sorry, long story short, that was the first kind of
Yeah.
involved thing in this. And it wasn't even like ghost, it was literally just stay here for the
Mhm.
night, move on.
There's something
Uh
to that feeling though. You were saying like how you felt things were watching you and stuff like. There's something to like that is
yeah,
paranormal. Like I
yeah.
think we've got that sense built in us,
That's it.
and
Yeah,
and
yeah. Whatever animalistic kind of
yeah, yeah, that's
yeah.
there. That's there. I don't know if we use it as much because we don't need to in today's society, really.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of like people when they say I'm sensitive and stuff like that. I think we all are to an extent,
Yeah.
but I think some people just have that a little bit more for whatever reason. Maybe just a little bit more open to the strange and weird stuff around us. But it is interesting, man.
Yeah. And like especially because I always tell people like stuff happens around like to the people around me. It never usually happens to me.
Hmm.
Like Dulce, my wife. like she's woken me up before here. Like this is her childhood home that we're living in, and she's woken me up before, and she's been. If any of our listeners happen to be on here, they'll know this story, but because it happened like mid podcast run as well, so we were all excited to talk about it. But yeah, no, she woke me up, and she was like, there's someone in the living room," and I was like, "Ah, you're dreaming. Go back to bed." Like she thought I didn't care. I was terrified. That's why I was like, "No, no, no, it's nothing." Roll over, pretend to go back to sleep. Big brave man. Uh, but the cat, our cat, Pork Chop, our big lovely heavy cat, she reacted to it as well. So her and Dulce were both eyes locked on the door because it's a small house, it's a bungalow. So if you're in the living room, like next step is our bedroom, basically. Like, uh, so anyway, Dulce, in fairness to her, like she gets up, she checks the whole house out, no one there, and she gets back into bed. I was like, "What did you hear?" Like, actually, like, and she was like, "No, I heard someone in high heels, as if they were in the kitchen or like maybe the front door, like you know what I mean." But a distance away anyway, and like walked across. But like, I don't know for her if it was just the shoes. Anyway, she heard high heels walking on a trajectory through the house. And I was like, oh, it was just the ice maker in the fridge or something, which catches me out all the time. So I'll be sitting here editing, and all of a sudden you'll hear, say, no, 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 this was definitely. And she kept saying to me, look at Pork Chop, like, look at the cat.
Mhm.
And so I was like, all right, well, hopefully we'll hear it again, whatever. A few nights later, I'm up here awake late at night editing whatever episode, and usually I'll have one headphone on, one headphone off, and I hear it exactly what she described, but I only heard like a clip of it, right? It was like somebody hit like play and pause on a tape recorder, so you only have like it was like 3.5 steps. It's hard to even describe, but it was
Yeah,
like clear as day, like that was high heels. Like nothing
interesting.
else that I've ever heard in this house could like have been that before or after. So this time I was awake and I did run out straight away, like whipped the headphones off, ran outside, and of course there's nothing. Can't remember what the cats were doing, like if they were in bed or not. I don't remember any of that. I just remember me going out, checking it out, turned on the lights, waiting to hear like, was it the fridge? Was it the? It wasn't. You know what I mean? I have no
Hmm.
explanation for that.
Yeah,
But we haven't heard it
interesting.
ever again. It was just like one random, well, I guess two random little things, but within
It's
the
weird
space of
that it
a
happened.
week.
Yeah, it happened close together. Has your wife experienced anything else in the house or seen anything in the house?
Yeah, like so she has actually a really cool, well, she didn't think it was cool. A Ouija board story when she was like a teenager or something. She brought stuff or she was doing it. I don't know that it's not my story, but basically she was out with friends doing a Ouija board, and of course it got weird, and so she was like, "Oh, this isn't good. I'm gonna go home." And I think it was like the following day or something. She gets home and her mom was here, and they could smell something burning, and they were like, "What is that?" Like, and the two of them are like looking around, and it gets stronger and stronger in our room. Now, this is before I lived over here, but in our room where the closet is, built-in wardrobes or like actual closets in these houses, like so. Anyway, they get in there, but like there's nothing actually burning, like and then all of a sudden, like once they got in there, the smell just went away. I think she might have had like a box full of like you know, stuff that she didn't want her mom seeing or something, like like whatever teenagers keep in there, you know. But it was like just a weird instant. There might have been like a few more things like that with it, but it always stuck out with me because then when in the first year that I was living here, uh, we have Pork Chop, the big cat. She's from Toronto. I brought her down with me. But then within a few weeks, I was bringing her to work and we found a kitten in the car park of her work. But it was the day that everything shut down for COVID. So I was like, look, I'll bring this little cat home whenever the SPCA opens up. I'll clean it up and I'll bring it there. I'm only living here a few weeks. I'm not telling your man that. Oh, look, we got another kitten, you know what I mean? Anyway, he was a little bit older and the two of them were asleep. They never really got along, the cats. So one would sleep on one corner of the bed and the other would be on the other corner of the bed. And then me and Dulce obviously are lying down. And at the time, we've rearranged the room since, but at the time, the closet was at my head, say, and there was a walkway around the bed to her side of the bed. So anyway, we were sitting there watching TV, like nothing strange, and all of a sudden I can smell like perfume. But like there's other people in the house, so it didn't nothing really occurred to me or whatever. I was like, ah, Dulce's mad, maybe she woke up, maybe she's I don't know, like but it was later actually now that I think of it, I think everyone was asleep. But I could definitely smell this like strong perfume, uh really floral as far as I
Hmm.
remember, which was like a weird thing for me to even think. Like
Yeah.
uh but yeah, anyway, so the next thing I see, pork chop's awake and she's looking at the closet. And then Max is looking at the closet. And then I can't smell it anymore. But the two of them are following something down the side of the bed, literally all the way up and around to Dulce. And I can't remember like
Wow.
the actual order of it, but she was like, "Can you smell perfume?" So I can't remember whether I had said it to her first or not. So I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
embellish the story around. But yeah,
Man, but that's weird. So you heard that the other day, you heard the not the other day, but you heard
the
the
high
high
heels,
heels
yeah,
and then
yeah,
the perfume. Is this some
yeah.
sort of lady entity?
I don't know. And like because it's not our house, it's not one of those things like I'm trying to delve too deep into. And then again, you know
Yeah.
yourself, like this is where you lay your head, you know what I mean? Like it's all well
100%,
and
man.
good. Uh,
100%.
but yeah, so I don't know. And then like there was a time there when I was convinced I was going to go back home and conjure up this ghost in the woods. Terrible idea. Don't advise it. But I was like
Bro.
at a time of like all time skepticism. I
Right.
like I think I was just completely burnt out and I was like, "Do you know what? Like I'm not getting the fun isn't in these stories anymore. I'm not like feeling it like I was before.
Hmm.
Like, let's do something different. Let's go back home. We'll go to these woods. We had the story that we had covered of like, this weird child entity in the woods that was trying to lure other kids out somewhere in Ireland. We didn't know the exact location, but we were like, I'm like I was saying earlier, like I'm big into like tulpas and stuff like that. So I was like, let's just go home and treat every woods like it's this little child's woods, and let's just see what happens because I don't even believe it anyway. So like whatever. Anyway, at that time I was getting all of these synchronicities and I couldn't figure out what it was. Turns out I think it was telling me to stop. But
Whoa.
yeah, because it was getting to the point where like um I don't know, like someone would mention something on the podcast and like a truck would drive past with like this name that they had just said like on the and it was like to the point where it was happening so frequently that I had stopped writing them down because at first it was like, oh, this is really weird, how interesting. And
Wow,
then
man.
it was like just totally bizarre. And anyway, so amidst this, like I had like about a month then where I literally like it almost like completely flipped me like around. But anyway, I was having these weird synchronicities, dreams that were like happening. Like I would dream about a place that I hadn't been to before, and then I would end up going there without realizing it was the dream till after all this kind of weird stuff. And there was one day I get home, and I think I don't know, I was in a rush, whatever I was. I'm always in a rush because I'm terrible at planning anything. But I get home and I'm like running out to grab the hose. I had to wash the car off for something or something in the car. Anyway, I locked myself out, but or no, I'd gone out. I had turned on the hose, ran back out to grab the hose, and the hose was off. So I was like, what the fuck? Ran back inside again, turned it on, and I'm like, hold on a minute. All the settings were wrong on the hose because it was on like a splitter or whatever. And I was like, I know that this water was running. I felt it in the hose before I got there. The hose was off. Anyway, so then the last time, and I'm like, fuming at this point. I'm like, just need to get this done. And I'm trying to lock the gate, and the gate won't lock. And I'm like, what is going on here? It was the wrong key in the gate, but I was the only person here, and I had opened the gate.
Oh, man.
You know what I mean? So I was like, I don't know. I don't blame the house, like, because I don't think it is the house. I think it's whatever was going on with me at that time. Like,
Yeah.
if this was, I'm reading about the Philip experiment now, so I'm big into
Hmm.
PK, like psychokinesis, stuff like that. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know, is this literally like some weird me getting under my own feet? I don't know. I just call it now, I just call it fairy stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of
I mean, that
nicest way to put it.
that is strange how you were like at your skeptical stage where you're sort of writing it
Yeah.
all off, and then it's like you got the message to say, no, no. Be
Yeah,
careful with this, actually.
yeah, and
Wow.
yeah, and it's so like because none of my stories are well, I have like I've had a few scary stories like or experiences, but the ones that really stand out to me have been the more kind of they feel more like kind of John Keelian,
Hmm. Hmm.
like grand scheme of things,
Yeah. Like
solidifying.
this is a
Like,
message.
yeah, and it's like nothing has happened to me now for like the longest time. And but I think I'm just in whatever, like I'll call it like a dry spell or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I mean,
now I'm not at the point where I'm like seeking it out, so
mhm.
I'm like happy enough with it. But and I'll keep this one short. But we went to the Stanley Hotel in 2003, or 2023. Again, we met in the Stephen King chat room. The Stanley Hotel was the one that inspired The Shining and all this.
Mhm.
And our favorite band, Amigo the Devil. Shout out anybody who listens to Amigo the Devil. He's fantastic. We've seen him like 5 times. I'm actually friends with people on Instagram now in the band, so I get to take
Ah,
photos
that's
for them
awesome.
whenever they roll through. Yeah, deadly. Uh, anyway, we went. He was playing there for the weekend. We're in Stanley Hotel. Like this is great. Never been to Colorado before. Renting a, we ended up getting like a lovely truck because the rental place messed it up and they had to upgrade us and all. So here's us driving up through the mountains in this lovely, comfy truck, like literally living the dream. And we're hanging out at the Stanley Hotel. So we do like the ghost tour or whatever. And for weekly creep, I was like, well, I'll learn all the legends of the Stanley Hotel before, and then we can like kind of compare it or do whatever. That'll be like a nice, easy episode. So anyway, this tour guide is telling the stories, and I'm like, all right, like I literally like I was trying not to sound like a dick, but I was like, I've heard the story, I've heard the different versions. I'm like, okay, cool, nothing really different, whatever. But it's still lovely. Like we're staying different parts of the hotel. We go down into the I think it was like a servant's kind of or a staff like walkway that's underneath, but it's literally like you're looking up at the floorboards directly underneath the reception, and it's just built on bedrock. So it's the whole vibe changes again. Like you're down there, and it's as soon as I walked down, there was a big boulder on the side, and literally in my head, I just saw this little girl peeking up and like slowly come down. And I was like, oh, I'm like spooking myself out here. Like, don't be ridiculous. So I'm like, I'll go and I'll stand there with my back to the rock for the entire time. And Dulce, we had gotten like split up. So she was at the other end of the group. And the fella turns off the lights. And honestly, like, it didn't feel weird or anything like that. It was just like, okay, cool. When are we moving on? Kind of thing. Like, still super grateful that we got to see that spot. But afterwards, the guy's showing us photos that people have taken down there, and he's like just showing his phone around the room, and I was like, "That's the little girl that I had just seen,"
Whoa.
and I told him that, like I don't even think I meant, but like my blood ran cold, and I was like, "I saw that little girl when I came down here," and he just looked at me like, "Yeah, yeah, all right, whatever." Um, but
Wow, man.
yeah, so the only difference was what I saw was because it was like eye shine and stuff, like in my head, like it was ridiculous. But her hair was like bigger than in the photo, like more kind of untame or whatever.
Hmm.
And I was just like, that was a really weird moment because it brought me back to all these other times when I had spooked myself out in these places. And then I was like, no, I just
Bro,
have to ignore it because
you saw a ghost, bro.
what in my mind, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the thing. So I'm like, I think
That
this was
is,
like just a weird,
but then to
and
see the
again,
the picture, the confirmation, like that
yeah. So
is
that's what like initially, if I hadn't been for that photo, which like what are the odds of seeing the photo, right?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I was like, because I've been in hundreds of places before, and I've had this like weird thought, like the Ottawa jail that I was talking about earlier. That night, like I just had in my head the picture of some man like standing over me, nothing aggressive, nothing weird. But that's every time I kept like spooking myself out, that's what I was thinking. And so that experience in the Stanley made me think back, and I was like, "Do you know, I actually don't want to know if like this was like a weird psychic thing or if this was just me spooking myself out or what, but I was like that was really, really strange, man. Yeah,
Bro. I mean, for
yeah.
me, it's your experience, but I feel like you've seen something there, man. I really do. I mean,
Yeah.
to get that confirmation of the picture as well, that is
It,
wild.
it, yeah, it kind of just changed everything
Mm,
looking back, you know what I mean? Because
yeah.
and like we've had experiences like the Hellfire Club is in the Dublin Mountains, and but like it's a 10-minute drive, 15-minute drive maybe from my mom's house. So like when I went back home in 2019, that's where we were just hanging out. Like we would go up there during the week. The thing we were most afraid of was like kids up, being rowdy or whatever, Because there has been reports of that, like kids will go up there for a party, you know what I mean, and then obviously kids being kids, like things take a turn for the worse or whatever. Someone gets hurt.
Hmm.
So that was the only thing we were ever really like worried about. But like we've been hissed at in that place. And like for those who don't know, there's no snakes in Ireland. But this, like in hindsight, it was like a cat hissing at us. But like we were upstairs, and I've texted my friend's wife multiple times about this because it was me and her. We were doing our little kind of recce, making sure that there was nobody like sleeping in the place or anything. And we both heard this like clear as day. But like the reaction was so weird that that's why I'm so doubtful of it. Like I've so many times I'll text her like we heard that, right? And she's like, yeah, no, like 100%. Because we both just looked at each other and we were like, that was weird. Went over to the window. It came from the corner of the room, but there's a window there. So we like quickly looked over, like shone the light out, like nothing, absolutely nothing. And then even like later on, like I was convinced that I saw a little cat up there, and we had no evidence of that. And so, but we didn't even put like two and two together.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? These were like separate events. So I don't know, like these events, like when you're not looking at them like written down in a book, like say you're reading like Guy Playfair, like this house is haunted, and it's the Enfield story, and it's like back to back information. But then like when you come away from that book, you're like, hold on, that was I think 15 years worth of stuff. So it's like a lot of the time you're not even going to see any correlation until it's side by side or you're writing
Hmm.
it down and you're going to go like, oh man, yeah, that was weird. But yeah, man. So I don't know. Like I've had a bunch of really small, strange
Yeah.
experiences, but that my favorite one now is the one from the Stanley,
Yeah, that
and
is
the one with the
wild.
keys getting like switched around as well. Because look, maybe it was me. I don't know, but for me, it was just like that's like trickster
Yeah.
energy right there. Because especially right when I'm like really frustrated and trying to get stuff done, it's like, do you know what would really annoy him?
Yeah.
you know so that's the kind of stuff, yeah. But yeah, so
Oh,
anyway, that's like
interesting,
the
man.
personal stuff, yeah, that
Yeah,
I've had.
I find it very interesting when I talk to guys like you that are quite skeptical, and I really like that as well. I really like that. Like you're honest, you're not going to jump straight to that was a ghost like I do.
Yeah.
But I find it so interesting when a guy like you tells me these stories as well, because I know that like you're thinking of every option. You know, it's not, as I say, jumping straight to the paranormal. And
Yeah,
that's a big one, man. The fact that you saw that girl and then you saw the picture, that's wild to me. That really is.
yeah, no, it was but like I do have to be clear, it was like a psychic, like it was a mental image. That's the word.
Hmm.
I hate using the word
Yeah.
psychic, but
But
it
maybe that's
wasn't.
what a lot of
Well,
these
so
things
this
are.
this is it, yeah. And like I know I'm always harping on about the Newkirks, like haunted objects, Hellier, and all that. That is something that they're a big proponent of. Is like, and actually in that the book that I'm reading currently about the Philip experiment, it's like even when a bunch of people see this thing, is that this is what a group hallucination is, but it's actually like some weird mental telepathy kind of thing, like
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
so and that book in particular is like that's what it's studying. It's not discounting like actual ghost stories or anything like that, but it's just saying like particularly in poltergeist phenomena and stuff like that, is it some weird link?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
man. Which, when you think about it, is just as weird and as
it's like
paranormal
yeah,
as seeing a ghost. You know, if the fact
yeah,
that we can all come together and see these things together at the same time, we're seeing, experiencing the same thing, that's wild. Like, if we can do
yeah.
that, that is just as crazy as seeing a ghost, I think.
exact, and like not to get too deep into it, but like then when you every there's like Bigfoot and UFO or like actual alien encounters, it's like all of these people that have witnessed the same or similar things at the same time. And actually, I have a good example of that as well. But um, like even if it is some mental thing, it doesn't mean that they didn't experience it all. Like you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
And at
Yeah.
the end of it, like you're still like you've still had that fear or that shock or that like love if it was a loved one, whatever. But
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, real quick, one of the last times we went back home, we were trying to find this old castle. Uh, it sounds a lot more glamorous than it is. It's like you'll probably know yourself, Tom. Like it was a castle at one point. It's definitely like a ruin now. But
Yeah.
um, anyway, me and my friends who used to go up to the Hellfire Club, we went there one night in 2019, and it was actually just too cold. So we were only there for about 15 minutes. The wind was howling, so like EVPs or anything like that, it was a no go. But the whole time I remember thinking like this is really weird energy. We were all constantly like we saw lights and stuff like that and but like just on the walls, like weird stuff. And again, I hadn't read any like literature on this at the time, so we didn't know like it was really typical like fairy activity. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
And I kept thinking that there was someone peeking around one of the walls. There was like a stairway and stuff. And I kept going over it because we were more afraid this was private land. And I think farmers are basically the only people in Ireland that can legally have guns. So we were like, you know, anyway, we just didn't want any of that hassle. So it was just weird energy the whole time we were there, these weird lights and stuff. Uh, so anyway, we went back, I think last year, or maybe it was 2023 again. And I was like, let's go find it. It'll be nice for like a walk or whatever. It was broad daylight, me, my two little sisters, and my wife. And we drove past it. We saw it, but we couldn't find the little turning point that we had parked in like a few years before. So I was like, okay, well, maybe like a house was built or so. I don't know. Could not find how to get into it. So a little while down the road, there was an actual little small public car park, and we parked in there. And when we got down into it, actually, it was funny. My wife had never seen nettles before, right? Like in Ireland, basically nothing can kill you, but stinging nettles are about the only thing.
They are
And she,
deadly.
yeah, and she gets out of the car and she goes, "Oh, what are these? They're so nice." Puts her
Oh
hands on
no.
them. I'm like, "Oh, for God's sake!" Uh, Thankfully, my little sister found like dock leaves. Anyway, but
Yeah.
when we went down there, the tree cover was actually so heavy that like it felt like nighttime. You know?
Hmm.
Again, like this was 5 minutes from like actual like neighborhoods, suburbs. You know what I mean? It's not like isolated. And but we go down and there's a walking trail now. So I'm like, well, if we go on the trail, we're bound to find the thing because it's going back that way. Anyway, it's getting darker while we're there. We're walking around, and again, we see the top of the ruins, but we can't get into it. And I'm like, this is just so annoying. But obviously, like the farmer has made a better fence or something like that. I was like, oh well, like we tried to get it. Let's just go home. And at this point, like we can see people, like in their gardens, like far off in the distance or whatever. So I was like, okay, come on, let's just go home. I think this trail wraps around. And as we're walking down, I hear a car door slam, and I'm chatting away to, funny enough, my other like skeptic sister, the youngest one. We're chatting away like about whatever, probably like what we're gonna go and have for dinner. But when we hear that car door slam, my wife and middle sister react to something and they're like, "Oh my God, like, did you hear that? Did you hear that?" Freaking out. And me and Roshan were like, "What are you talking about?" Like, it was a car door. They're like, "No, no, no, no. That was a growl. Like, that was an animal that we just heard. And it didn't come from the direction I thought. They heard it coming from the trees." And I was like, there's no animals that would be there to make that noise. So like, and I like now my wife is still annoyed about it because I literally brushed it off. I was like, "Don't be silly. Like this couldn't happen." Blah blah blah. And then it was only afterwards, and I was like reading. I think it actually was like John Keel accounts of stuff with like again. I just call it all kind of fairy stuff, but like just weird activity, the other, whatever you want to call it. And that exact phenomena of hearing the car door slam in now again we weren't in the wild, but people have heard it in the woods. Tim from Strange Familiars, he has heard it when he's
Yes.
been really in the like where it could not be a car.
Yeah.
But the fact that I heard one thing, they heard another thing is also like a super common thing in this weird, bizarre activity. So I'm like, okay, well, now with this weird like telepathic thing, was that us scaring ourselves? I don't know, but like they still like
Interesting.
hands down say to this day, like, no, it was like a growl or like a hoof or something.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, I mean, there was no cows, there was no bulls around, or like, which would be in my head, like that's the only thing. There's
Yeah.
not like we would have seen a deer, like the trees weren't that heavy. Like, I don't know, man. So
Man, that
bizarre.
is weird though.
Yeah,
And you do hear that a lot, and I've heard Tim talk about that as well.
yeah,
How you hear the door slam in the middle of a forest where there is no cars
yeah,
anywhere near. And sometimes it's related to Bigfoot activity as well, you know.
exactly. Yeah,
Some
yeah,
say that they can make those sounds. I mean, I don't know, but I mean that's weird though. That is very
but
strange. Metal gates as well is another one that you hear a lot apparently in the forest where there's no
really,
metal
and there's
gates.
nothing around.
Yeah.
That's so bizarre. But yeah, it was just again another one of those little layers of like nothing crazy, but it's all starting to add up, and like they're the small things that I'm like, man, like
Hmm.
that's weird. And again, I call it fairy activity, but in my head, like that's all. Like I love that. Like, what is Bigfoot but a poltergeist in the woods? Like,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's all the same sort of
Uh,
activity. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Just in a
So I
different
love
place.
that. That's the kind of stuff that really like gets me kind of more invigorated about you know doing this stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, literally a few months back now, I saw a gold light fly around my room. And I sound silly saying it, like I feel silly saying it, even though I
right,
shouldn't
right.
because I talk to so many people about this stuff. But
Yeah,
I saw this gold light go around my room, and I was like, I've just seen a fairy. Like in my mind, I was like, and I was like, nah, like, let's try and debunk this. And it was pitch black.
yeah.
It was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I was on the floor because the wife and kids were in bed, and I didn't want to
Of
wake them
course.
up.
Yeah,
So I picked up my phone and I'm trying to recreate this light. And it wasn't anything that I could. The only possible thing I think it could be is like I've got an issue with my eye and I just seen a flash. But I literally followed this small gold light like sort of fly quite quick around my room. Really weird. And I was like, I've just seen a fairy in my mind. And I know that sounds crazy. Like I
yeah,
know
yeah.
like even though I
But
do this podcast, I've talked to people that experience this stuff.
but
But
that's just it. Like that, it never gets easier when you're explaining to people. Like, look, this is gonna be weird. But that is so interesting. The fact that it moved. Like, I've got one friend. His wife is like a practicing witch, but she's the spooky one. Like he has, like even I can see him anytime we're all together, and I try to not start talking about this when he's there because you can see his eyes just glaze over, and you're like,
some people won't have
um,
it. Yeah.
yeah, and he's like he's too polite to say like I think it's all, you know, but he did the one experience that he had was he woke up one night and he was he had no reference for this but he said it was like a ball, like a glowing ball in his bedroom, like just above him. Now I don't know if his moved or if it just faded away, but I'm like, what is this? You know,
Yeah.
because so many people now, like
100%. And as
that's
you say, even
crazy.
people that will say they don't believe in it as well. Quite
Yeah,
often, like I talk, like yourself, like we always ask the question, "Have you experienced anything paranormal?" Even if we're at work, in the street, whoever we're
yeah,
talking
yeah.
to,
It's a
and
good icebreaker.
yeah, it is. And so many times people are like, "Nah, I don't really believe in that." But there was this one time,
Yeah,
and there's always this one time, and it's like a wild story, and you're like,
yeah,
"Wow, do you want to come on the podcast?" And they're like, "No." I'm
yeah,
like, "Okay."
yeah. Oh man, yeah, that's my biggest struggle right now with Houston Strange is like people like that will they be telling me
Yeah.
I was actually in a small town like 2 hours from here uh recently enough, and I was like there was a UFO incident that happened here, like very much like this was a government thing. The MUFON reports are there, the newspaper reports are there, like it's not a legend. This happened. And so I was like, I had the day off. Let me go up there. It was before my air conditioning stopped working. So uh, I haven't been taking any of these trips lately. But no, so I was up there and like, I was just trying to do the boots on the ground thing, which is like really time consuming. But a lot of the time I get like the best kind of stories that way. So I went in, literally hanging around at the local barbecue place. Uh, and this town, like, it was on the rougher side, like, you know what I mean? And now the people were lovely, super nice. The young one in the barbecue place was like, I haven't heard of this. Um, but you know what I mean? Like, give me your card or whatever, like, and I'll ask my folks about it. She was like, okay, cool. As I was walking out, there was this couple sitting in their pickup truck. They were just smoking cigarettes, so the windows were open, waiting on their lunch. And I just went up to them and was like, hey guys, look, this is what I'm in the area doing. Uh, and I said whatever year I thought it happened in, and the guy straight away was like, it was 83, not 88. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, so he knows, he knows. And then he starts telling me all this, like, inside, like, local knowledge. He was like, it didn't happen where it says in the reports, it actually happened here. Next thing I know, I'm like following this guy down like a back road out in the middle of Texas, following his pickup truck, and he's like, I'll point to where the thing is, and then because it was on his way home anyway. So I was like, okay, cool. This might be a terrible idea, but like I'll follow you. But when it comes down to it, like now I've tracked down the people who are actually involved. Well, the one surviving person, but it's like trying to get them to open up. Like as soon as you like, because I actually had microphones with me as well, and I was like, I know if I pull out this little mic, they're gonna like start. And it's true. Like they gave me their details and stuff like that, but every time I've reached out, they just like they ghost me. Yeah, which is funny, but
It's difficult. It's difficult to
yeah,
get
man,
people
yeah,
to talk about this stuff. But I
yeah,
think that's what's important. The more people that share,
exactly,
the
yeah,
more normal this becomes, and it clearly is. There's more going on, man. 100%. We know that. We've
big time,
experienced
yeah,
enough to know that there's more to this world.
yeah,
And as we say, even people that will say it's not true, half the time they've had an experience as well. So it's
yeah, man.
interesting stuff, man.
This is it, like, and I do feel a bit bad. Like the house that I grew up in, like we never had anything. Not to my knowledge, anyway. I don't remember anything weird ever happening. Like a picture falling off the wall or something like that. That could have been complete coincidence. But since 2019, since I was living there and doing this ghost hunting business, I don't even like calling it ghost hunting. We were four friends hanging out in the dark. Um, but yeah, like that house has actually been pretty active. And I don't know, like, because it was only around then, like we lost one of our young cousins, and like he would have come out, like, you know what I mean? It was that house is everybody's kind of happy place, you know what I mean? It's been the one house that hasn't changed for like the last 25 years now or something. It's so that's the only thing I can think of other than, I initially when stuff started happening there, I was like, oh well, it's just whatever like energy that I've brought back is just like kind of burning off or whatever. Like the light turned on beside me one night, stuff like that. And but I was like, I figured it would just like kind of fade out, you know what I mean? And yeah, no, I picked up my dad in Denver a couple of months ago. I drove up to Denver and we drove over to San Francisco with my dad and my uncle. Uh, and nearly as soon as he got into the car, he's like, "You're never gonna believe what happened the other night." They've had like, and again, it's not every week or anything like that, but yeah, him and my mom they were alone in the house for the first time in forever. Like my niece and my sisters now live there, so it's always a busy house now. But yeah, my mom and him were sitting down in the sitting room and they were getting dinner ready or something. No, they were in the sitting room, yeah, and they hear this big boof upstairs. And so my dad like walks up, sees what's going on, and there's a big Yankee candle, like the same, like the regular, Yankee candle, like heavy.
Hmm.
It was just on the ground in the middle of my sister's floor. Now he said it was on its side. If it hadn't been sitting up, I would have been really like freaked out. But he said no, it was just sitting on its side, but like it hadn't smashed or anything. And the shelf it was on was, like a high shelf. And so anyway, that was weird enough. But then he goes back down and he didn't want to say anything to my mom. So he was like, something just fell over, like nothing weird. But as they're in the kitchen now getting the dinner ready, one of their, I think it must be my mom's phone. I think he has a Samsung now, but the Siri turned on, and now my Siri's turned on. Sorry, I don't know how to avoid that. Uh,
Mine comes on, but never when I call for it. I'm not going to say the name now, just
oh
in case.
really?
But yeah, it's really weird. Just sometimes it just shows up. I'm
No,
like, I
my
didn't say
like
anything to do with it.
mine comes on like obviously for your own voice as well. Anyway, but yeah, it comes on and it just sighs. It just goes, ah.
That's weird.
Right? And so at this point now, like my dad is actually freaked out. But like that was it. And then I think I don't know if it like continued like repeating whatever results it was supposed to look. I don't know. But yeah, he said like and he was like, I swear to God, the thing just breathed out.
I didn't think they could do,
I
Siri
don't
could do
know.
that.
Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe it was some like weird glitch, like because they have Alexa, they have
Hmm.
that as well, like you know what I mean. And then, but yeah, so I was like, okay, so stuff is still going on there now,
Yeah, man.
and like I don't know, it's weird. I don't know what it is. It's comforting when you're in your own home. You can just go, that's just Granda or you know Luke or whoever, like you know.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the only way I think to not be scared by it.
yeah,
Like,
100%, man. It's interesting
yeah,
stuff, and
yeah,
there is more going on. That is for sure.
yeah, definitely.
Brother, I have loved talking to you today, man. It's been an absolute
Been
pleasure.
great crack.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I really and truly thought, like, 'cause when the internet wasn't working earlier, I was like, something is working against us
Yeah,
here.
the podcast gods,
Uh,
they're going against us.
yeah, but no, this has been great, and sure, I mean, I'm always happy to have a chat. So if you're ever needing,
Yeah, man, 100%. Yeah, I'd love to get you back on. I'd love to get guests back on anytime. So you're
yeah,
always
man, yeah,
welcome, man. And it's we had a good chat today, man. I feel like we could go on for another few hours, to be honest.
yeah, this is the problem. Yeah, go on, mate. Look, that was yeah, that was lovely. Thanks so much
Can
for having me on.
can you tell the listeners where they can find you and your awesome show?
Yeah, absolutely. Look up Houston Strange. uh Anywhere basically. I think it's on should be on any podcast platform that you're listening on. And then if you go onto YouTube, not all episodes are video because it depends on what the person wants, but for season 2 I'm pushing to have more video. So if you do want some visual reference, yeah, go onto YouTube as well, Houston Strange. And yeah, hopefully season 2 will be out fairly soon, as soon as I get my finger out
Awesome.
basically.
Awesome stuff, man. Well,
Yeah,
links will be in the show description so people can go and get to you right now. Just click the links. And yeah, thank you so much, brother. Let's do this again soon. Give Annabelle
absolutely, man.
back. Give Annabelle back.
He's happier here, man.
Yeah, there you go. It's just fun. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. I will be back very soon for more freaky conversations. But in the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, thank you.